Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark with you guys to preview the third best region globally as the LCK. That's right, third best, according to First Stand, is the next one to be kicking off. And let me tell you, we got a spicy season ahead, and I think it'd be a whole lot more boring if we had like two LCK finalists from First Stand. We're just going, yeah, best region as always, blah blah blah. But we got a lot of change and a lot to get to in the LCK for Split 2.
This is an LCK that needs a rebound, and that rebound is going to appear in the form of having a strong domestic split from some of these front-running teams to lift them into an MSI where it is must prove for the LCK in order to maintain their status as that number one respected region heading towards international events, because as you said it, a third place finish at First Stand for the region, very much so not what the expectation was or the determination. And so right now, this is an LCK split that is going to be under intense speculation.
And because of the results of First Stand, now you legitimately have all three of the big three, being Hanwha, T1, and GenG, not only with some question marks, but looking for bounce backs and kind of need to prove themselves again. Obviously, GenG, the embarrassing 3-0 loss to G2, T1 back-to-back upsets to exit early, not even make it to finals weekend, and of course Hanwha, who had the lower expectations between those big three, but still finishing 10th place. So who has more to prove and who needs the bigger bounce back?
I think it's pretty easy and just flat out has to be Hanwha Life in order to maintain this conversation about them being a big three member, a big player within the LCK. You can't be finishing 10th place in the split. That is obviously the situation where there needs to be a bounce back. I think there is obviously as well cases that you can build for T1 to get that bounce back performance. Didn't get that invitation to not even Hong Kong for the final event of the LCK, never mind getting the invitation for First Stand. And then GenG, the disappointment at the international stage once again for this group, but I think even more seriously falling out at this event where they did really raises those alarm bells for people on what they need to see as an improvement from this GenG, even with understanding that, again, these should be dominant splits from these teams. You still need to see certain aspects of them to showcase that improvement or lesson learned from this event.
And what immediately will make this split more exciting in the LCK, of course, is number one, it's not the LCK Cup yucky format. But number two, showing that this region can bleed not once but twice, and there's a fresh, revitalized dosage of hopium from Europe, especially, obviously, after what G2 did, but even the LPL capturing First Stand, even though BLG didn't have to actually beat GenG in a head-to-head, you're feeling like there's more of an opportunity for some of these teams to take a chunk out of the LCK, which means the ball is in their court to again prove that they are their premier region. And it starts with these big three. Hanwha Life may be the obvious one, as you mentioned, but I mean, even though there's not a title on the line, because it's this road to MSI where it's just tough to go to a bracket and qualify, T1 needs to kind of prove that they're in that contender status as well, because are we going to continue to see the trend of squads like BNK and D Plus kind of stepping into that contender status?
That's going to be the question right now, and really more so towards Hanwha Life and T1 by that extension is looking at, can this still be the established top order of the LCK? I think there is obviously less doubts about that with GenG, even with the disappointment at First Stand as far as what type of form they'll be capable of when they come back to the region and how they'll position themselves within it. For T1 and Hanwha Life, absolutely the hope, the expectation is there to be there. But given the uncertainty and results that we saw within that first split from everybody else in the LCK, it wouldn't be this massive leap, crazy jump to say that maybe you continue to see some struggles, some downsides to these teams, and squads like BFX, everyone else here in the LCK find a way to level up, to take some of these positions. That's something that I think is going to be one of the more interesting things to see within this LCK split.
The BNK angle, you heard on cast when they first upset T1, it was like, wow, I don't see them having another best of five or series at this level, but like what a level on the day. And then of course they proceed to smash D plus, get kind of owned by GenG, but have some positive moments, even if it's a disappointing end at first stand, which absolutely proved that this wasn't a fluke one of upset against T1. This is the level that this team can reach. And I mean, again, with this new format, we're going to go back to Legends and Rise after. So we'll get the Fries group memes. But if BNK slots in alongside those big three, you've only got one spot left in the Legends group for D+, Nongshim, KT, even the DN Supers, who kind of leveled up at times. And we saw, despite losing over and over and over and over and over again to GenG and the big boys in the Legends group, KT Rolster somehow came out of that hyperbolic chamber and made it all the way to the World Finals. So is it better to lose in Legends or dominate in Fry's group? Well, I'm not really sure.
As long as you can maintain your mental, I think that is the focus when you're talking about
Yes.
playing in that Legends group and what you will go up against. And I think for a squad like BNK, it has to be that you are getting into that Legends group in order for you not to plateau as far as your progression and growth this year. I think that is required, that you continue to test yourself against the hottest flames, the most intense fires of the LCK, which is in that Legends group with a GenG, with assumedly a Hanwha Life, a T1 that are showing their teeth. That's where you got to be if you're BNK to continue to challenge and improve yourself. And I think another squad like DK would find themselves in that type of position, that you could use that angle, that yes, you might be losing a lot of those matches, but there's a lot of lessons and a lot of improvement within that, like we saw from KT Rolster last year. And you can make arguments for certain members of those rosters being those players to step up, to gain more from that type of exposure than I think you would say when you're looking at squads, like DRX, like Nongshim, and who else, who probably are going to be much more comfortable down in the Fries group.
And don't forget, that's Key Woom DRX heading into this split. Always got to have some type of name change rebrand for a squad, but with weaknesses in the armor of these big guys and the level up of D plus and BNK, it makes for not a given in terms of what this seeding is going to look like, and even who the top two are going to be representing the LCK at the midseason invitational. And we get a couple of days for BNK and GenG to get back into things. I don't think they're playing until the Friday, but the Wednesday actually has some nice matchups. And you might say, Hanwha Life versus Bro, how's that a nice matchup? Well, think about it. Back to last split, 0-5 Freddie Brion, better than 2-3 Hanwha Life. So really, this is a battle to prove who is the 10th place team in the LCK.
Even kind of stepping aside that little joke about it, which, frankly, still has the potential to be the reality, which is a scary thing to think about if that's how it actually does turn out. But this matchup is certainly one where you got to start somewhere. Every journey starts with a single step. I don't care if that single step is against, the GenG, the world champion type of form, or a Freddie Brion. You got to step over him. You got to find a way to move up the ladder of the LCK, and it all starts with this one, hoping to see an impressive form out of Hanwha Life. And then the next matchup on the day, though, is a telecom war. So yes, even if you're not buying in for what will be, I think, a good one to tune in on their, first step of the journey away from the Shire for Hanwha Life, let's tune into some telecom war action, which we know, despite always being the favorite T1, things can get a little messy if BDD gets himself involved for KT.
And it's been so long. Again, there's so much to prove. February 1st is when Hanwha Life was eliminated. We talked about this when they were gone. It's going to be a while, legitimately over 2 months since we'll see them back on the Rift. I feel like sometimes Worlds to the winter split is about that length.
And I think it's one of these situations where, yes, of course, it's mostly a negative in a lot of these situations. I think Hanwha Life is one of the rare teams that could make the argument that that time away from the main stage could have been the more beneficial option for them as a team to sort out some of the issues that we saw with them that weren't issues previous year, that type of thing. And when you're looking at with where Peanut was dominating and communicating in the jungle, these type of things, that's one of those things that you can work out over time away from the main stage type of thing. So that's something I'm hoping to see for Hanwha Life. On the other side for T1, I think having this amount of time away and is still one of those ones where you're maybe not gaining as much as you could have if you were involved within first stand and keeping things going. Getting more experience for pays with this group would have been the big thing that I'd be looking at.
And really, this first week is going to be how well did teams utilize the time off, or what's the mindset coming into the split? I think, again, from these big three, especially Hanwha, we're going to see angry, ready to prove themselves, and I would be absolutely shocked if they drop a game against Burl. But that being said, they play T1 later in the week, so it's going to be a 1-1 either way for Hanwha. I'm betting this week.
You're making me so scared for the bro match because that one is going to be the one that will decide. Yes, I could certainly see a world where they falter that first step out of the gate only to correct themselves against a significant opponent in T1. That is, of course, I think the marquee matchup this week within the LCK is getting these two head-to-head outside of obviously the Wednesday getting the action going, so that'll be on the weekend. And I think as well, you can also still look at a GenG BNK matchup as well. The two first stand representatives getting it on the weekend as well in the LCK. Very much so, not exactly the, Oppenheimer level of explosion fireworks as far as getting you back in, but still a very exciting light show in the LCK this week headed up for us.
If it's not a T1 versus GenG matchup, it's about as good as you can get in terms of intriguing other matchups, and we'll be here to break down all that week one action and day one action in the LCK. But that is it today for Liga Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, Stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always, and you best believe we'll catch you on that flippity flip.